There is a secret sitting in the climate-controlled halls of Mexican museums right now, one that has been staring at tourists, schoolchildren, and scientists for decades. It is carved into the faces of 17 massive stone heads, each one weighing up to 50 tons, each one older than the Roman Empire, older than the Greek alphabet, older than the Trojan War. On the surface, they look like monuments to power, stern, proud, unmistakable. But archaeologists who have spent their careers studying these sculptures have uncovered something far more unsettling than anyone expected. Beneath the faces that we see today, there are traces of something else entirely. Evidence of reworking, modification, and systematic destruction. 3 layers of deliberate silencing executed in volcanic stone. Whoever did it wanted to make sure that whatever was carved there originally would never be seen again. Let us start with what we know for certain, because even the established facts about these heads are extraordinary enough to make your head spin. The Olmec colossal heads are the defining symbols of Mesoamerica's oldest known major civilization. According to researchers at Dumbarton Oaks and the World History Encyclopedia, the Olmec civilization reached its height between approximately 1400 and 400 BCE on the southern Gulf Coast of Mexico, predating the Maya by centuries and the Aztecs by well over 1,000 years. The 17 confirmed heads are distributed across 4 main archaeological sites. 10 at San Lorenzo in Veracruz, 4 at La Venta in Tabasco, 2 at Tres Zapotes, and 1 at La Cabeza. They range in height from roughly 1.5 to 3.4 meters, about 5 to 11 feet tall, and in weight from 6 to approximately 50 tons. Look at them closely, and something immediately strikes you. Every single face is different. Not variations on a generic theme, but distinct individuals, different bone structures, different expressions, different proportions. The scholarly consensus, supported by enciphers and other leading Olmec researchers at UNAM's Institute of Anthropological Research, is that these heads are portraits of specific, real Olmec rulers. The individuality of each face and the extraordinary investment of labor required to produce them point directly to this conclusion. These were not religious icons stamped from a template. They were records of actual people, frozen in volcanic stone with a level of anatomical precision that has no easy explanation. And precision is exactly the right word. The ears carry correct anatomical structure. The lips curve with natural fullness. The eyes have carved lids and subtle depth achieved through controlled surface variation. The headdresses, believed to represent either ceremonial helmets or the gear of ballgame players, feature layered patterns that suggest different materials: cloth, leather, feathers, leather straps. Modern stone carvers working basalt today rely on diamond-tipped power tools and pneumatic hammers to achieve this level of detail. Yet the Olmec accomplished it with handheld stone tools and abrasives, a method confirmed by archaeological analysis of workshops at San Lorenzo. Now here is the part that stops every serious researcher in their tracks. All 17 of the confirmed colossal heads were carved from a specific type of coarse-grained, dark gray basalt known as Cerro Sintepec basalt, named after a volcano in the Sierra de los Tuxtlas mountain range of Veracruz. This stone does not exist anywhere near the sites where the heads were found. According to Dumbarton Oaks research on Olmec origins, the stone from which the San Lorenzo heads were carved was sourced from the flanks of Cerro Sintepec, approximately 60 kilometers by air from San Lorenzo. For the La Venta heads, the distance stretches even further, to between 80 and 150 kilometers, depending on the specific source location. That distance, over terrain with no wheels, no horses, no oxen, no draft animals of any kind, represents one of the most staggering logistical achievements in the ancient world. According to Wikipedia's entry on the Olmecs, which draws on established archaeological research, moving a single colossal head required the coordinated effort of an estimated 1,500 people working for 3 to 4 months. Scholars believe the Olmec used balsa wood rafts to carry the boulders along rivers wherever water routes were available, then switched to log rollers for overland sections. Britannica's account of San Lorenzo notes that the stones were likely dragged to the nearest navigable stream and transported by raft up the Coatzacoalcos River. Dumbarton Oaks researchers calculated that no fewer than 490 total tons of basalt were brought to San Lorenzo alone. Think about what that means in practical terms. This was not an occasional project. This was a sustained, industrialized operation requiring state-level organization, a sophisticated understanding of hydrology and terrain, a reliable food supply chain for hundreds of workers, and the political authority to command it all. This kind of infrastructure should leave an enormous archaeological footprint, and for the Olmec civilization itself, it does. The problem comes when you look earlier. Here is where archaeology moves from impressive to genuinely disturbing. Multiple studies of the colossal heads have documented something that the museum plaques rarely mention. Many of these monuments were not originally heads at all. According to research published by scholar James B. Porter and cited by Dumbarton Oaks, at least 2 of the San Lorenzo colossal heads, and possibly more, show physical evidence of having been reworked from earlier Olmec thrones. San Lorenzo Colossal Head 7, as documented on Wikipedia's detailed entry on the colossal heads, was originally a monumental throne. It still bears a deep indentation on one side that is characteristic of throne niches. 13 of the 17 known heads have notably flat backs, which researchers suggest indicates they were once horizontally oriented blocks, thrones or altars, that were later tilted upright and recarved into portrait heads. The Apollo magazine analysis of Olmec art states it plainly. What were once horizontal thrones on which a ruler would sit were tilted upright on their sides and transformed into towering presences. One scholar, Miller, has proposed that a specific ruler's throne may have been converted into a colossal portrait as an act of remembrance following that ruler's death. The monument was literally transformed, its original form erased, its stone recycled into something new. Whatever had been carved into the throne surface, whatever iconography or identity had been encoded into the original stone, was chiseled away and overwritten. And then came the destruction. Britannica's entry on San Lorenzo documents the event with clinical precision. Many of the stone monuments at San Lorenzo were deliberately smashed or mutilated around 900 BCE and buried in long lines within the ridges of the site. Matthew Stirling, writing about his excavations at La Venta as early as 1940, noted that almost all of the great stone altars and monuments have been broken and mutilated at the cost of considerable effort. This could not have happened by accident. According to the Grokopedia entry on Olmec colossal heads, drawing on archaeological research, the heads exhibit evidence of deliberate mutilation and burial during this period of site abandonment, likely as part of ritual or political acts designed to neutralize the symbolic power of rulers. The pattern of damage is what unsettles researchers most. According to analysis cited by Unpacked History, the colossal heads at San Lorenzo had broken noses and mouths and intentional grooves carved into their surfaces. The Apollo magazine account adds that a number of the heads were intentionally defaced by grinding divots directly into the face of the sculptures. This was not the random damage of neglect or weather. This was targeted. The sensory features, eyes, nose, mouth, bore the brunt of the destruction. The headdresses were largely left intact. The chin strap survived, but the face itself, the identity itself, was attacked with apparent purpose. So far, everything described has conventional explanations, or at least mainstream scholarly debates. Political vandalism, the ritual termination of monuments when ceremonial centers were abandoned, the recycling of stone in a landscape where suitable basalt was precious and hard to transport. These are reasonable frameworks, and they are genuinely contested among archaeologists. Wikipedia's Olmec's entry acknowledges that scholars believe some of the mutilation had significance beyond mere destruction, but that internal conflicts or even invasion cannot be entirely ruled out. But here is what those frameworks struggle to account for. When a civilization carves monumental sculpture, it leaves a trail of evidence that archaeologists can follow. Quarry sites covered in stone chips and broken tools, workshop areas, housing for the labor force, storage facilities, refuse dumps, and burial sites, because people die during major construction projects. The Olmec civilization itself left exactly this kind of evidence at San Lorenzo and La Venta. The trail is readable. The archaeological footprint is there. The trail for the civilization that came before, whoever carved the original throne surfaces that were later reworked, whoever first shaped the basic forms that the Olmec inherited and modified, is far harder to read. Researchers have spent over a century excavating the Olmec heartland, and the developmental sequence for the emergence of monumental stone sculpture remains, in the words of Dumbarton Oak scholars, poorly understood. The Olmec appear in the record already building monumental architecture and organizing massive labor forces. Where are the rough drafts? Where are the failed early attempts, the primitive prototypes, the learning curve that should precede mastery? The lowland tropical environment, as researchers at Country Reports note, presents one genuine explanation. The heat and humidity of the Gulf Coast accelerated the decomposition of organic materials, meaning structures of wood, textiles, bark paper books, and wooden sculptures have not survived. What we know of the Olmec comes primarily from stonework and ceramics. Earlier, less stone-reliant cultures might have left very little for us to find. But that does not fully explain